Welcome to the first ever 828 Power Panel. We are excited. It's going to be an evening where we're going to be just kind of chatting back and forth. It's going to be give and take. We're just not going to be the only ones talking up here. You guys can talk to us. There's mics here, and we'll kind of take them down and pass them around and all that good stuff for you guys to ask questions. And we're just here to kind of grow together, learn how to start businesses, scale businesses, specifically here in Western North Carolina, and everything that entails. And I'm going to let the guys kind of introduce themselves. Britton, do you want to start over there, and then we'll come this way?
Of course.
You're
the guy
you're the one
can text
you're
out first. Yeah.
There we go.
Hey guys, I'm Britton Briley. I own Ghost Brands in Greenville, South Carolina. We're an ad agency, production, consulting, website, all that good stuff. We primarily deal with the restaurant industry, sports industry. We represent a lot of arenas, hockey teams. We just are behind the scenes, always on a computer. We're ghosts. We post like ghosts. So exactly. Ah, you got it. Perfect.
Hi, my name is Steve Cooper. I'm a friend of Andrew's. No,
It's good. You are. I figured there was more to it, though.
I think that qualifies me to be here. I'm with Keller Williams Realty Professionals in Asheville. I have a specialty, and that's working with seniors as a senior real estate specialist. And there's a new community within our organization, certified real estate planners. And I'm really excited to jump into that with both feet, because what we're doing is helping people understand wealth building, especially in real estate, and then how to protect it, and then how to build your legacy to pass along whatever the assets are to whoever you would choose to pass it along to. So I'm really excited about that.
It's good stuff.
All right. Well, Jonathan Brake. I'm not from here. Actually, I am. That's not true. I've lived here for 8 years now, and so I have a business called The Forge Leader. So we work with companies, well, technically all over the world, but certainly all across America. We call them leaders in transition. So they're leaders that are either scaling a business, scaling, they're transferring ownership, they're doing something significant in their business. And then, so we have a 2-track process where we coach them at one level and work through their strategy. I have a background in marketing originally, and got way out of that, thank goodness. But it's a different world now. But so it's just, I'm also an entrepreneur. So, every time Andrew and I get together, there's a new thing. There's something else where, an entrepreneur is just an undertaker. So there's always something else we're undertaking. So I'm working with an Australian robotics company, now a tech company in the structural health monitoring space, working to commercialize that here in the US and bring it to Greenville, South Carolina. And as of this afternoon, also working with another company that is commercializing some technology around how to improve non-arable soils. So just a lot of kind of cool stuff going on. Never a dull moment.
What's up, guys? I'm Justin Rogers. I'm from Hendersonville, North Carolina. Went to North Henderson High School. Went to Western Carolina University. Got a background in commercial construction, development, real estate. And now I have a coaching company called Be Kingdom Men, and I teach men primarily how to be valuable in life, mentally, physically, and spiritually. It's biblically based coaching, and then we dig into entrepreneur stuff a lot too. Life and business really is a math problem. I love math. I don't know that my wife and daughter love math that much, but those are things that I enjoy. But a lot of times you can solve a lot of problems in life by looking at the math of it. And a lot of people have goals and strategies and hopes and those kind of things, but they're just not specific enough to get the job done or get them where they really want to go. So I help people identify kind of where they're at, where they want to go, and then we build a bridge, as I call it, to fill the gap in between. And then there's a lot of accountability to go through the process. So, and then we wanted to do this today because we all love giving back. We all love helping. Andrew and I connected just because we're both from here and we both do business coaching and consulting. And we want to help people who are in business who have questions. There's a lot of information on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and the internet, but it's not specific, right? You don't have anybody you can sit down with and go, hey, should I wear a tie? Should I have an LLC? Should I post on Facebook? Should I wrap my truck? Should I have a website? Who builds a website? Who do I call? Who has a reputation and whatever skill set that they may have that ties to you as a business person, whether it's insurance, legal stuff. And so we put these panels together to try to bring value to the community. You know, it starts in the community, and it starts with, you know, people getting out there and doing things on a daily basis and having hopes and dreams and goals and then doing something about them. You know, that's how all the big businesses were created, from Google to Amazon to Walmart. You know, most of those started in a garage. So we want to help people build their business, you know, from your garage. So that's kind of why we're here today.
Yeah, absolutely. And so if you guys don't know me, I'm Andrew, and I'm the owner of 828 Biz Marketing here in Hendersonville. And, you know, just to echo what Justin was saying, super excited to hang out with you guys today. You know, this is kind of our labor of love to be able to give back to you guys, especially the Western North Carolina community that's given so much to us. And we wanted to specifically have it on August 28th, if you guys didn't catch up on it, 828 Day. So we're super excited about that, and we hope to have this be a reoccurring thing where we celebrate everything Western North Carolina on August 28th and every day. But all that to say, I'd like to open us with a word of prayer. So if you guys would just bow with me. Heavenly Father, just thank you so much for this time where we can gather together and grow one with another so that we can increase in our entrepreneurial endeavors. We just invite you into this time, just ask that you expand our minds and our mindsets so that we can give back to our families, to our communities, and to the folks and customers that we serve. And we just trust you and praise you in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
All right, appreciate y'all. So this is kind of a town hall event, so you guys can kind of ask any questions you want. We've got 2 floater mics up here. Did you want to enlist someone to float the mic?
Maddie, you want to float the mic? You want to pass the microphone around? It's my daughter.
Official mic floater.
Yeah,
That's good.
there we go.
Yeah. There we go.
So Maddie, come up here and grab a mic off that stand and just flip it on.
Yep.
Check, check.
There we go.
So just hold on to that.
All right. Who's gonna be question number 1?
Yeah, so the purpose again of this is to ask questions, right? So what questions do you have? We'll kind of start off, who in here is an entrepreneur? Everybody's an entrepreneur, right? So that means, what does entrepreneurship mean to somebody? Somebody throw out an idea. What does entrepreneurship mean to you?
You own your own business.
Own your own business.
There you
Okay.
go.
You got to get the mic. I'm just kidding. So that's my wife, by the way, so I better be nice. Entrepreneurship, what does that mean to somebody else? Anybody? I mean, it could be on the panel.
Financial freedom.
Financial freedom. What does it mean, Andrew? What's entrepreneurship mean to you?
Yeah, so I actually had a mindset shift today listening to a podcast. If you guys haven't ever listened to Renew Your Mind podcast, it's for small business owners, entrepreneurs, specifically geared toward folks in the service space. But something along those lines that kind of shifted my entire mindset is the idea of redemptive entrepreneurship. So actually being in the marketplace to build wealth and not have shame about building wealth. And that's kind of been something that I've struggled with in my journey, that I'm always kind of keeping wealth at hand's length, and it's almost a taboo kind of conversation. And it's kind of been a mindset shift for me, because as we generate wealth, we can't actually give back to the community and give back to those around us and generate new job opportunities for others if we're not focused on generating wealth to make those opportunities. So that's kind of been a shift for me today.
Yeah, I've had a lot of thoughts like that. You know, I talk a lot about faith. God's given us all something, right? God's given us an opportunity to wake up today and to live this life, and given us all unique talents. And you know, one of my passions is helping people realize that, and then how to put that to work. You know, we honor Him. We should be good stewards. He calls us to be good stewards of the talents and all the things that He's allowed us to be stewards of here on this planet. So kind of ties to that, you know, being able to help others with the gifts and talents that God's given us, and give back. You know, I always tell the story, if a soup kitchen called up and wanted you to volunteer on a Saturday, or you could give them $100,000, which option do you think they would take? They're going to ask you for the $100,000. So how do we generate more opportunities in our community where we have leaders and mentors and entrepreneurs, where we can create those type of situations where we can make an impact? You know, a lot of people talk about legacy, but they don't have any specifics to that. It's just kind of a hope and a dream. And I always say that, you know, hope's great, but it never takes you anywhere. It's like a vehicle that's out of gas. So anybody else, what's entrepreneurship mean to you? Gotta be somebody out there. Y'all all raise your hand. What you got? Manny, hook him up with the mic.
For me, and I think for many people, entrepreneurship means freedom, which is BS. I don't know what's another word for that. Because once you become an entrepreneur, freedom is kind of gone.
Right?
I spent years working 7 days a week, 16 hours a day, and then I caught myself, and I got a coach, and I did the Wheel of Life, and I rated the importance of adventure as 10, but actually I was having like 1. So she said, how can we increase that to a 3 or a 5? And I started planning adventures. So for the past like 20 or 15 years, I'm out mountain biking and hiking and doing things, lost 30 pounds and kept it off. And yeah, so that's freedom. I have a question. Do I ask it now or we?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Real quick though, what do you do for a living? What do you do for a living?
I am a 50% partner in Loyal to Local. We are a B2B connector. We try to help businesses stay local. We incentivize our businesses, the members to do business locally.
Okay, cool.
And I'm also trying to reignite my speaking career. I've been speaking since 2004. Then in 2018, I lost my son in a car accident. And so I took a little break, and I'm trying to reignite that. So my question is to Jonathan primarily.
I knew you'd pick on me, EG.
Yeah, so if anybody else knows, then like how do you get your foot in with larger companies, with industries? Like
I thought you were going to ask me how do I survive a mountain bike ride, but you've ridden with me and you've seen it. Yeah.
he looks way tougher than me, I know, and
That was diplomatic. Thanks, man.
It's the flannel.
I thought I can keep up with him. I cannot keep up with the man. I mean, he is the monster of mountain biking. So yeah,
Down.
but I enjoyed it.
Definitely downhill. So what was the question again? Sorry, man. I'm my own distraction. So welcome to entrepreneur.
Yeah, how do we? And that's exactly how many of us are like, oh, squirrel. How do you get your foot in with industries, with larger companies? Like, I go to networking events, but I need small businesses, which is great for Loyal.
Yeah.
But for my speaking business, I'm having a little bit of. In the past, I would just go in person. I would introduce myself. I would ask to speak to the HR manager. But these days, when I go to a company, there are this big sign that says no soliciting. So I don't know, am I soliciting? So I'm afraid to go in cold. But in the past, that's how I would get most of my gigs. And then I got repeat business for years.
I mean, in short, it's relationships. And so there's not a simpler answer than that, other than I just, my whole kind of life philosophy is meet the next person and see what happens. And so that has been tried and true. The whole reason I'm in America, I always joke about this. There was a guy who was speaking at a Christian business conference that I was an organizer of that happened to be from Hendersonville, North Carolina. And I saved him from a crazy guy in a can of Fosters, and it was like, we joke about it still today. He's still my best mate. He lives downtown, lives on Fifth Avenue in Hendersonville. And it turned out he was the chief people officer of the largest light industrial staffing company in America, $3.5 billion revenue. And I became their primary leadership coach from Australia. I got used to waking up at 5 to 3 in the morning, drinking my cup of tea, because that was the only thing that made me sound like I'd been awake for more than 20 minutes. And then doing 2 or 3 hours of calls and then going back to bed, just because of the time delay and everything. But it was just relationships, just connections. I've right from the get-go, like I started back in Australia in 1999 and just went to conferences. I actually started an association called the Micro and Home Business Association in Australia, which was kind of the sub 1 million revenue businesses. In Australia at that time, there were about 1.5 million of them. So we started an association. That then got me a gig as a board member of the Council of Small Business of Australia, which was Australia's peak lobby group. That then opened the door. The CEO suddenly exited, and they said, anyone here on the board want to be the CEO? I said, yep. And next thing, I'm lobbying prime ministers and senior leaders, and they're flying me around the world to meet. The most interesting conversation was having a meeting with one of the head guys in the IRS. and telling him how the Australian tax office behaves, and he goes, well, we'll never do that. And I went, yeah, it doesn't surprise me. And it's funny, you can imagine the tax office being the most entrepreneurial government department you've ever met. It's interesting. That's a whole other conversation. But it's just, so, as I said, they just lead one thing to another. And some of them are strategic. You know, we've got marketing folk here who can tell you more about the speaking and what are some things you need to do on social media. How do you need to put yourself out there? How do you communicate? What channels? Well, you're very good at that too. And but then there's just continually meeting and then looking at industry groups rather than just local chambers. With all due respect to the local chambers, they're amazing. But you know, when you start to look at big shout out to Farber up there. And but looking at, you know, you're dealing with a local business group, and so just keep connecting and meeting. You know, like, you know, the head of marketing from the airport turns up to the chamber events, right? So those sorts of people are there. It's just connecting.
Industry groups, you have an example of?
Yeah. So one of the ones I became a member of the American Association of Talent Development. You know, leadership and strategy coaching. I started going along to the SHRM stuff that was up in Asheville, you know, paid to be a member. And then there's opportunities sometimes to put yourself forward as a speaking gig. And so, you know, they then open doors to other companies and other places. So, yeah, that's an example.
One thing I was doing was commenting on leaders' posts on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
And then after a couple of weeks, I would invite them to connect. And by then they know me. So I got a couple of connections that way, and I got 2 speaking gigs coming up this year that I built that way. And the Chamber of Commerce Asheville, they have every month one industry. You can go in and meet the leadership and all that. So I made some connections there. So
Yeah, it's and unfortunately it's not an instant reaction, right? Because this is highly relational. Our business is highly relational. And but as I said, these guys would be better to talk to some of the more technical strategies to that.
Yeah, I was gonna say stuff like don't sell, relate. That's the biggest thing. It's like people every day, I mean, we're marketers. You know how it is. Like, how many people have had it sponsored LinkedIn inboxes and have not looked at it, just delete it because you know it's spam. And so if they see like that walking into a building, you have to relate. Like, you know, we deal with Sphinx, you know, gas stations with 187 locations, one of our clients. And that was a big corporation to get into, but we didn't go saying we can build the best website on planet Earth. We can do all your photography. We said, hey, you have 18404s, you have that we're speaking their language, talking about the size of their website and the issues it's having, and say, listen, we got to fix these holes. But before we do, hey, you want to go out to lunch? Let's talk. Let's sit down. Let me buy some chicken from your gas station. Stuff like that. Like, just relating, having fun with them. And then finally they say, well, let's sit down and talk about actually what you can do. So it's like building that relationship, really honing in instead of just saying, we can do the best. I can motivate people by talking to them. Like, well, hey, we have a million people that can do that. People hit us all the time. How can you really redefine your unique perspective for that? So
Yeah, it's good.
It's good stuff.
thank you.
Next question. Anybody? I know y'all got a question. Hey, we got a question.
There's David. What you got, man?
Alrighty, so I'll play off of what EG asked and he answered. I'd like to believe that I know a lot of people, being in 4 chambers, going a lot of places. And what he said is, don't ever settle, right? I've done a ton of things for this community, whether it's financial or my time or connecting, whatever it is, I've given and I've given and I've given, and it's grown the business because of that. But, and they say it's not who you know, it's who knows you. And I can walk into a chamber room and literally, I think 80% of the people know who I am, what their opinions are, you never know, in business and in personal, because they're 2 different sides. But at which point do you get frustrated enough to say, I'm looking at you using other people that aren't even local, right? Because you're not supposed to sell. So if you give and you give and you give, and you connect and you connect, and there are still some that haven't even come to you the first time, at which point do you turn into sales mean guy, right? It's like, remember all these things I've done for everybody? At which point should I say, my turn?
Well, honestly, in my opinion, I just, after so many times, we call it ghosting, ghost, get it? Not gonna need a punny word, but after a while, we actually just stop. We don't even worry about reaching out to them. We find other categories, other people. We want to love on them. We still say happy birthday to them. We still, anniversary works. I mean, we're still in contact with them, but at the end of the day, if you're wasting so much time trying to get into one business and they're not reciprocating that, they might not be a good partnership and a relationship in the long run that I don't even want to do business with them.
Well, no, I'm not taking all those people and going to them and, I mean, what I haven't done, because my business is growing so well, is gone to each one and said, come here for a minute, let's talk, right? If I said that to them and they didn't come to me, then yes, just like anybody who reaches out for a quote, you follow up, bye, right? But it's the asking, at which point do you decide to ask them the first time? And if you ask them and they blow you off, then you're done. But, right, you just keep giving, you don't go one-on-one to ask. That makes sense?
Yes.
I get it. If you keep asking them and they say no, then be done with them or go to a different group. But
I build everybody around their connections, so we have a 5-step process: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Not trying to give out too much information here for marketing on our side, but Monday we'll hit them through social media. Tuesday we'll give them a phone call, find out who the front desk receptionist is, find an email. Third day we're emailing. Fourth day we're visiting them in person. Fifth day we're visiting them in person. So it's a 5-step process that I know everyone around them. So I'm like, hey Angie, what's up? I just talked to Justin on Tuesday about this. That this hole's happening. I know you're busy. I know you just got back to Philadelphia. I talked to Emma on Thursday. Like you're building their whole circle where all these people that know, like, listen, this dude knows more about my business than half the time I know versus a regular prospect. And finally, we annoy him so much that Friday, by the time we come back, like, when did you get back from lunch? 1 to 2? Great. I will be here at 2:01. Tell him we can't wait to meet him. So you finally, I gotta sit down and talk to this guy or he's gonna bug the heck out of me the next week. So we do some of that stuff where we actually build that correlation, build the family, build the connections. Sorry, I might get too close. So is my watch? Maybe. Sorry. Maybe. Wow. But it's one of those things where we try to build that whole connection around them. We know every person about their business, and the one person we haven't talked to yet is them. So stuff like that as well that we work on.
The way I look at it, it's like dating. I always say people will show you their cards. In business, we have two things, time and money, right? So you're either, in business, you're investing in one of those two things typically on a daily basis when you're trying to get someone to engage back with you. And so, I always tell people that they'll show you their cards at some point, and then when they show you their cards, when they pick their hand up and they show it to you like in a game of poker, they show you how important you or what you know or your relationship is to them, then that's the moment when you get to make a choice. Is this worth continuing to pursue? Is this business worth continuing to date? Or am I just spinning my wheels? Because we all only have so much time in a day and also so much mental capacity. And we want to make sure that we're being effective and efficient with our mental capacity and our time pursuing the right clients. Because if we spend all the time pursuing the wrong clients, then we've missed out on pursuing the right clients.
Yeah, and I think there's another piece of that too that has kind of clicked with me over the last couple of years is that if we genuinely care about those people, we will eventually come to the point where we make the hard sale, because if we care about them and their business, we know that what we bring to the table, apparel, we know what we bring to the table is going to benefit them. And if we don't say, hey, let's sit down and have this sales conversation, we're actually doing them a disservice because we're not connecting them with what we can bring to the table to help them with. So I know your question was kind of like when, and I think it kind of goes to what Justin was saying. As you're kind of dating them, you'll kind of get that vibe and that feel like, okay, it's time for the sales conversation. And then at that point, having the mindset that, hey, I'm literally helping them.
yeah, there were people I met 7.5 years ago that come to me now. So sometimes the when is longer than you want it to be. Right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sales cycle varies.
Yeah, I don't think there's a specific 30 days and then you just, you're out.
No, but what he said is right. If you've actively pursued them, then you know when to get out. It's not the active, it's the difference. I have the same business in Durham too. And all of us that have worked in bigger cities know that Hendersonville, North Carolina, and then Asheville are not Durham and Raleigh, right? So it's definitely more relationship based in a small area like this, and you can play that long game. You can play the community and be present. In a bigger city, they'll just run right by you, so you've got to dive in. So yeah, here it's better for that. But once you start the pursuit, then you know when to get out. It's when you continue to be a part of something and you just want and the business is growing, because there's also the referral side, which you can't take lightly, right? They may never, but they'll refer you.
Well, and in that dating process, there's people that you learn you don't want to do business with. It's okay to remember the other side of that. We're always looking for new business, new clients, new leads, and that kind of stuff. But don't forget to pay attention to the people that you don't want to do business with. Because if you've been in business long enough, you've had clients that you're like, man, that was not worth it. And so you learn to ask those questions, you know, when you kind of start the dating process, you're like, this thing, no.
Look, and look, there could be another piece of this, and I mean, you don't seem to be this kind of person, but I've seen this a lot, particularly in networking situations where people really put themselves forward constantly, is there's also potentially some broken processes in terms of how you connect, and then how you deliberately connect in terms of moving towards sale. You know, for example, I mean, I see you at all the chamber events, you do definitely stand out, you do more than your fair share for those organisations. And I did too with a lot of the associations I was a part of back in Australia, and had the same frustration. And then I realised it was like, first of all, and I love how you mentioned the mindset thing, right? Because for me, it was just like, even though I'm quite confident here, quite comfortable, it's like, well, why aren't I taking the, like, what am I afraid of losing here if I just take that next step? Hey, can I just come and grab a coffee with you? Or can I come and see you in the office tomorrow and just talk about some of this stuff? You know, and it's very much a discovery, of course, as you know. But yeah, sometimes it's actually just time to take some of those steps.
Yeah, and I don't think there's ever a bad time to go in for the close. I mean, everybody who is in one of those networking events understands you're there for business purposes. So, you know, I don't think there's ever really a bad time to go, hey, look, I got free time Thursday at 3 o'clock. Would you like to meet and have a cup of coffee? I'd like to really kind of dial in some of what you do for a living, and then also talk to you about what we could do together. And I don't think there's ever really a bad time.
So if you think about it, like we've caught up a few times at pitch parties or chamber events, things like that. My primary client base is $5 to $200 million companies. Come talk to me. I'll go and talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
They're all over America. Yeah, so but you've never actually stopped to ask me. So, or never stopped to find out.
I'm still watching you.
Yeah, I wouldn't trust me either.
He's still looking. Yeah, hey,
I'm not saying that to be mean, mate.
they're still dating.
Because I know exactly what you do, but it's just like, okay, it'd be cool to actually, if I start to think through some of my clients, I mean, they're doing uniforms, they're doing all sorts of things. They're doing promotions, they're doing awards, they're doing...
Yeah, I think that some of it, though, is you rest on your laurels and say, you know what, they all know me, they know what I'll do, I'm here, right? And then you don't take that next step. And I'm guilty of, I mean, I've been hardcore sell when needed, I've been laid back guy, and you go through reciprocal like ebbs and flows, so I get it. It's like, he knows what I do, and he'll tell his people.
I do, but then I go back to what I'm doing and just do it.
Right.
I don't think about you anymore.
I don't blame you.
No offense. I'm Australian, right? I put everyone off side.
I'll remember that.
Well, and it's never a bad idea to stay top of mind, right? So whatever industry you're in, it's and we all get comfortable in those situations where, like, I've been here 100 times, they know what I do, they know my face, you know, they know the thing. But it's never a bad idea to stay top of mind and have that conversation and say, hey, you know, I know it's been a long time since we talked, but this is what I do for a living. I don't know if you forgot, but if you did, it's probably my fault. So here I am to tell you about it. You know.
Okay, so segue to my second question, because as part of a franchise, they're supposed to help with certain things, and you have peer groups just by nature of franchise. And of course, they do some marketing for us, and we're always told, and so really the two guys on the outside this is for, but anybody jump in. Not posting is not good. Posting anything at least puts you out there. At which point, I guess hard asking it's, I don't know when it's stagnant, right? Because I can look at the post and go, I thought that was brilliant, right? I thought I was posting something and it told what I did, but then it becomes ho-hum. So what's the social media and marketing side of, well, I think it's working, but I don't know, and there's kind of a boring to dead to it.
Brittany, you want to start?
You can start, go ahead.
All right, so I think, you know, the key thing there is look at your engagement, your analytics, make sure that you are getting in front of the right people, making sure that they are responding back, because like you said, if you kind of hit that stagnating point where you're not getting the kind of likes, comments, etc. that you had before, then you're probably putting out content that's not actually connecting with your target audience. So at that point, it's a good idea to go back to the marketing strategy and say, okay, what am I putting out? Is it really marrying my messaging and what I need to get out to publicize my business with what my prospective clients actually want and what they need? And when you hit that kind of sweet spot with what you need to talk about and what they need, that's where you're going to start getting the most engagement and the most traction as far as content marketing, so that you're able to continue to bring in new business. And I think, you know, kind of what we've already been talking about with the content marketing, you know, leading with anything that brings value back to your prospective customers is just so helpful. And that's kind of what you were talking about in your first question. You know, you kind of give and give and give. And the same thing with social media marketing and everything like that. You just kind of lead from a place of serving and giving them information that's helpful to them. And then when it's the right time in the dating relationship, you go in for the hard sale close. And then, you know, best case scenario, you got yourself a new client.
We have 3 analogies on our side. Are you doing ads with the franchisee? Are they doing national advertising with probably like 6% gross of whatever you're doing? Usually some of that. Are you talking about ads or just posting organically on your page?
Just in general, and I mean, like, our age feels better with Facebook than the newer things,
Yeah.
right? And as a businessman originally by trade working in corporate, then my posts are more, here's Dave posting on what he feels good, not from a marketing perspective, right? So there's a comfort level that you don't know is right or wrong.
Yeah. And we think about 3 analogies that we talk about playing in the sandbox and playing outside the sandbox. But in the sandbox, if you're just posting to your page, the people on your page are the only ones going to see it. So if you're trying to hit a different captive audience, you're hitting the same people that see your post every day type of style, depending on time, energy, and effort, the 5 W's, who, what, when, where, why type style. But then the playing outside the sandbox is obviously doing like ads and getting new people to like the page, inviting them to like the page to see the content. So we funnel them in from the massive pond to our small little outlets. And then last is the one thing that I think is super underutilized is obviously, you know, which platform you're posting to, why. Can't use the same message on Instagram as you're on Facebook. Facebook the same on LinkedIn. LinkedIn same on the new X or Twitter.
But don't they tell you to use Hootsuite and all the other ones where one post is generically put across everything?
They say that. It makes it easy for you, not for the platform.
That's what I'm talking about.
So corporate will say that because they have a deal with Hootsuite. Like, hey, we buy this big old massive enterprise plan and you pay us to use it, and then they may get a kickback. So it's the franchisees are the franchisors, or franchise companies, corporate franchisees are their customers, not your customers. So it's such a funnel type of system of they could care less who buys from you. They know they're going to get their 6, 8, whatever type of percentage, and then you got to use their systems. So you're their customer, not your customers are their customers. So it's sort of a weird. You already know that from being a franchisee. So.
Well, and a quick thought on that too is a lot to back up to the very beginning is ask yourself, what's the purpose of your social media?
Yeah.
What metric are you gauging your success on social media by? Because that can drive the type of content that you post. So for me, I gauge that by the appointments that I set from social media, not necessarily the number of views that I get. And different types of content will generate different types of results, whether you're education-based or entertainment-based. If you're entertainment-based, you're going to get more views, right? Which some people think is the metric, and depending on what business you're in, that may be the best case. But the other thing to remember is maybe it's appointments. You know, if you're in real estate or sales, you know, if you're not having appointments booked and people engage with you directly from your social media content, then you've got to look at the content that you're creating. So always back into the first part of the problem and go, okay, what is my intent in creating content? Is it practice? Some people just post for fun. Is it fun? Is it a creative thing? You're a creative person and you just want to play with it and you don't care about engagement, you don't care about appointments, you don't care about views. And so ask yourself that question first is what is the purpose of your social media content? And then start to play with it from there. And you know, these guys have a lot of marketing advice around how to drive additional content to that end goal. But identify the goal first is where I find a lot of people get hung up with social media.
Going back to relatability too, like we dealt with a pizza franchise. It's based out of Ohio, but they have a bunch of local spots in, you know, obviously South Carolina and Georgia. And they did all these things. The restaurants, things are button seats. Get people in, serve them, get them out. Replace those seats. I mean, it's a constant recycle. But for them, like, how can we engage with people on social media? We're like, okay, we can post photos of pizza. Trust me, there are a million places to find pizza photos between Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, you name it. They're all, you can literally go to Google, just type in pizza, boom, it's everywhere. How do we get more people to engage with us? So we did a funny campaign, which is, does pineapple go on pizza? And everybody has an opinion. And I'll tell you this, everybody wants to voice that opinion. So we created this debate between people fighting with each other, very playfully, about does, you know, pineapple go on pizza? And everybody had some. So that, and then going into groups. Groups is one of the biggest things on Facebook I think are so underutilized. Getting into foodies, residents. There's a lot of different ways to do it versus just posting. Because I think about this, like, you know, I have a 14-year-old daughter. My daughter can post on my social media. Anybody can post on social media. It's pretty simple and easy once you need it. Are you on social media? No.
Not yet. Get there.
Don't start. I'm joking. Sam, unfortunately, all she does is stick on TikTok, Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram all day, every day. And she just consumes it. But she knows how to post. She knows the algorithm. She knows the hashtags. She knows stories. She knows all that good stuff. So it doesn't really take, not saying that we're not experts, we understand algorithms. But it's really understanding your platform and how to dive into it and get the most value out of it versus just posting a post because you need content on there to be consistent or relevant. So,
I haven't had much to say,
sorry, I know.
but I'm getting ready to say something.
He's got something now.
Oh, it's good. The best for last.
David, what if social media is not your best avenue?
Sure.
What if direct mail is your best avenue? Just a question.
No, it's a legit question because you do what you do and you know who you are, right? I like LinkedIn better because I'm talking to business people, whereas I hire designers, they would look at posts differently. And then Facebook by age, whereas, Andrew does a ton of video because he knows that, right? And I'm not shy, but but the camera and I talking to myself are a weird thing. So, yes,
So,
there are
okay, let's get back to basics if we can.
No, but there are tons of ways to do things.
Here's the way I'd like to look at it. I'm going to speak to some of what you said. How do you get into a corporation and all of that? Let's get back to who we are. We're entrepreneurs. We're entrepreneurs because we have found something that we're passionate about that we want to share with somebody else. Now, we're able to share that as it solves problems. So in any of these situations, try to break down those conversations that you're having with a whole lot of questions. I was a sales manager one time, and then I became a sales manager, and I started teaching what he taught me. Within 3 questions, you can uncover a business owner's pain point. Would you like to hear those 3 questions?
I think it'd be a good idea.
I want to hear.
Andrew,
Yes.
how's business?
Oh, we're doing all right. It's pretty steady.
Well, how's it going?
It's been going good. We are kind of enjoying life right now.
Are you?
Yeah,
In every way.
in every way.
Okay. What's your business going to do next?
I think we're going to start adding more clients in our Google Ads space.
Tell me about that.
So that's kind of a new offering for us. We're branching out into Google Ads and Facebook Ads because our clients have asked us about it, and we're getting some success in it.
Good for you.
Shit.
David, you can do the same thing in a Chamber of Commerce meeting. As you're doing the networking, as you're working the room. First question, how's it going? Second question, how's it going? Third question, how's it going? And usually in those conversations, you're going to uncover somebody's point of uncomfortability by the time you ask that third question. Does that make sense? Okay. The other note that I wrote down here is we're in the process of building relationships. If you want to get into a major corporation, if you want to get into investing in real estate, if you want to get into anything, you're going to do that by building relationships. You can't get there without the dating process. What is the dating process really? People are going to do business with people they know, trust, and like.
Sounds like y'all knew the answers to that. I heard some people repeating it.
Is it true?
Yeah.
Every time. If they don't know you, they can't do business with you. If they know you, you hope they like you, or at least what you're offering. And the trust factor is in simply doing what you say you're going to do. We okay with that?
Yeah.
All right. Now, let me break down one other thing. I didn't give you my full background. I was a teenage disc jockey. I was 14 years old, the first time I ever talked on a radio station. And I stayed in that career for about 20 years. But I've always been in sales and marketing. And I think people misunderstand that term marketing. Marketing has its own disciplines. And it's the umbrella that a lot of other things fall under, including advertising. See, people use the term interchangeably, advertising and marketing. Not true at all. Marketing is the science of understanding your business, your audience, and how to connect with them. Advertising is only one avenue to do that. So let's break it down in a different way. Let's make the distinction between prospecting and marketing. What is prospecting? That's developing that relationship. What is marketing? That's letting people know who you are and what you do. So if we can do that, then we can pick the right avenues for the kinds of businesses or people that we want to be doing business with. I hope that all makes sense. But the success of it is picking an avenue and giving it your consistent attention, because it's time on task over time that will pay off. 7.5 years, David, you've been going to the chamber, and you're picking up a few people now that you didn't have before. But you've never failed, in my knowledge, because I watch what you do. I'm a stalker of people who do a lot of good things in business, and David is one of them.
That's good.
But the reality is, you're so consistent with that in 4 different chambers of commerce. You never miss being there. Am I right?
Correct.
Correct. Time on task over time. And our objective is to get to know people, have them like us. How do you get somebody to like you? Same way I did it with Andrew just a moment ago. Ask good questions. Ask another question. Ask another question. Ask another question. You'll uncover the pain points, and you'll know exactly how to get inside that corporation. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, he's 100% right. I love talking about marketing and prospecting. A lot of times people separate the two, but I've got a mentor of mine, and he talks about how to build a recession-proof real estate business, and it's through prospecting. Marketing is easy from the perspective of buy the hat, buy the hoodie, get the sticker, get the logo, get the business card, and those kind of things. But prospecting really can generate some significant relationships in your business, and that's where the relationship part of it. In fact, he says, if you want to build a recession-proof business, you build a relationship-based business. And we've talked a lot about that. I think that's a common theme about relationships, and he's 100% correct. But that's, most people I find when I coach them from a business perspective, they enjoy the marketing piece, because that's kind of like you hire somebody, it's kind of hands-off, got a hat made, cool, that's fun, that's exciting. But it's how many appointments do you set, how many hands do you shake, and how many relationships do you build, and how much effort do you spend on that time on task of building those relationships, where it's kind of uncomfortable. You've got to make the phone calls, you've got to call all the other people to get to the one guy, you've got to build all those relationships. And oftentimes that takes 7.5 years sometimes to build that relationship to the point where you get to earn the respect in the business and prove value to somebody else in a certain space. So that's good stuff. Next question. Anybody, come on. I know somebody got a question. Maddie, right there in the back.
All right, see if I can word this correctly. So I got 30 plus years in manufacturing, right? Done a couple of entrepreneurial expeditions out there, some small stuff. But you know, I'm not saying that I'm old, but I'm experienced now, right? So I have a lot of good knowledge and some things and want to share that knowledge out. So and probably dive into a little more deeper into entrepreneurship and starting a business that can support for the future and then help others expand. So how do I do that? You know, what resources do I use so I don't go to jail? One thing. So I'm kind of take you guys back to the beginning. Type thing. So what advice would you give? Always looking, I know, I always said if I do it again, I'm going to get an accountant and a lawyer, right? So I know that's the first 2 steps, but what resources can I go to find a good accountant and a good lawyer, right?
Sure. So I think, I personally know several good accountants and lawyers, that I'd be happy to give you as a resource. One of the initial questions I think a lot of people miss in the beginning of entrepreneurship is probably the most powerful question of why. And through a lot of journaling and asking yourself good questions or surrounding yourself with other people to ask you good questions, you can discover that. In fact, there's a guy, a podcast I was listening to, he talks about the power of three, and asking a question 3 times, just like he was saying. But ask yourself that question, why? Why do I want to do this? Why am I curious about this? Why am I passionate about this? Why does this moment even exist in my life? And start to write down and navigate through those thoughts and processes, from like setting up a structure so that you get protected. Is that the question you're asking about getting an attorney to set up an LLC or an S corp?
Yeah, that. It's basically kind of everybody comes to me and they're like, well, how do I get started? Well, I said, well, I know there's a lot of good, even Blue Ridge Community College small business thing, but like, who do I go talk to?
Yeah, I mean, anybody up here, I think, would be willing or love to help people. I mean, I know all of us really, really are passionate about helping entrepreneurs, and that's kind of why we're sitting here today, is to pour into the community and to give back and to help. So and we'll give out our emails at the end of this thing and phone numbers so you guys can contact us and reach us. Because if you got somebody specific, or even you yourself or anybody sitting out there has a question, between all of us, and as long as we've all been in business, some longer than others are like a fine wine. But
Well,
we know some.
At least none of us are going to jail.
Right, and none of us are in jail. So, that's a great observation.
You've already figured out that I ask questions. Have you made any money yet in your entrepreneurial pursuit?
Some, some adventures have come to the point where, like I said, I'm in manufacturing, so that's comfort, right? But you sometimes you get to the point where, can I take that next step, right, to go out on my own? It's kind of always the big question. And I've got to that point a couple of times, close, but haven't really felt comfortable enough to do that.
Are you dealing with patented products?
No.
Or something like that?
No.
Nothing that's totally proprietary?
No.
Okay, well, what I say may shock you, but I'm going to say it anyway. You don't need a lawyer. You don't need an accountant. You need to get busy. As you get busy, the need for leverage in your life will surface. When you need an attorney, you can find one. When you need an accountant, you'll find one. You don't need one, in my opinion, until you start making enough money to pay a lot of taxes.
Right.
So,
100%.
Yeah,
so don't wait.
Right.
Jump in with both feet. Let's get going. And as you need help, somebody here is going to help you.
Figure it out. Right.
So, quick question to tie to that. One of the things, funny question that I ask a lot of people is, what's the number one thing in entrepreneurship? And he kind of just gave away a hint at that. But the number one thing in entrepreneurship ties to what you were just saying. And it's not what most people think it is. But out of curiosity, what do you guys think the number one thing in entrepreneurship is?
Staying busy.
Staying busy. What do you think?
Well, I think it's just passion. I mean,
Yeah.
most people who become entrepreneurial start with a passion first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And whatever is in your heart, I have to be careful how I say that. Whatever has been subconscious and semi-conscious and conscious within you for a while, that's boiling out, it has to get out. So get it out. And the other things will follow. So I think it's passion.
Yeah, passion's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, passion is kind of the fruit of it, but it's knowing why you're here and what you've got in front of you to do something with it.
Yeah, Andrew, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's the why, the motivation.
So those are all important things. And then once you develop that, what he was saying is one of the top tasks of an entrepreneur is to generate revenue, right? So it's fun to come up with the idea. It's fun to think about the thing. It's fun to even have the passion. But entrepreneurship is to earn a paycheck, right? So what he was asking in the beginning is, have you earned a paycheck from the things that you're passionate about yet? Because I agree with what he said. A lot of people think that you need an attorney or an accountant first. But what you really ought to be able to do first is figure out what you have. Is it valuable to, and who's it valuable to? And then how do you articulate that message into a transaction by which you earn a paycheck? So, that's a phenomenal place to start.
Great point.
What other questions we got?
Was that helpful to you?
Yes, thank you.
Anybody? Come on. I know y'all got something. Yes, sir.
She's an entrepreneur, she got bored.
The most important thing for an entrepreneur is MMA, money-making activities.
100%, Kurt, yeah.
Because I know many entrepreneurs, they have lots of passion, but don't make any money. They love what they do, but it's very hard to monetize it. So you have to find those MMA.
Yeah, I love the way that you put that. A lot of entrepreneurs, they miss what are the revenue generating tasks.
And I know some people who put up a big MMA poster in their office to remind them that every day focus on that MMA. I just want to circle back to David's question. Facebook changed. Even 20 years ago, when I posted my business stuff on Facebook, after, I don't know, 3-4 months, 6 months, I noticed that I'm getting 0 likes and 0 comments versus 50 to 70 prior to that. So I stopped posting business stuff on Facebook. I started a group, but back then Facebook would show you, not group, a page, business page. Your connections would see your business page. Today, nobody sees it. If you post on your business page, nobody sees those posts. You can keep posting on, and I know many people who say, I've been posting for the past 3 years, never got a client out of it. So I'm like, how many connections do you have on LinkedIn? I have 300. Like, wow, very cool. Yeah, so make sure that you connect on LinkedIn, and I believe that LinkedIn and Instagram is the best for business. Connect with your ideal clients, identify them, find them, connect with them, and comment on their posts. When you comment on their posts, the algorithm will start showing you more often. And now when you post on LinkedIn, if you comment on their post, the algorithm again will help you. But if you are only connected with non-prospective clients and you are not commenting on other people's posts, the like doesn't really matter on LinkedIn. You have to comment, and you cannot just say very cool or great, so you have to put full sentences, and then the algorithm will start showing your posts to those people who you commented to. But yeah, it's important to connect with your ideal clients and then keep posting. Otherwise, you're just posting in ether. What is it? In vain.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, E.G. There's constantly tactical changes with what works on social media, what doesn't work, and all that goes back to the algorithm and what it prioritizes and what it deprioritizes. And one thing that we've kind of found that pretty much any industry can employ, especially if you're kind of focused with niching down to local, like we are a regional marketing company, but most of our business is here in Hendersonville and the greater Asheville area. And what we've really found is the Facebook groups are just incredibly powerful and celebrating wins of others. So as you kind of get in those groups and as you kind of connect with your ideal clients in those groups, celebrating when they have wins is huge. And always, again, content marketing, leading with value. Don't come into the group and being a hard sale, hard sale, hard sale, hard sale. Come in, lead with value. And Facebook groups are hugely underutilized and are very, very powerful. And then kind of something you're talking about in the LinkedIn realm that actually works in Instagram as well. As you build these relationships, nobody's jumping in other people's direct messages. We get a lot of our business by jumping into other people's DMs and just saying, hey, thanks for connecting. As soon as someone follows us, we'll say, hey, and we'll do a video or a little audio clip and say, hey, thanks so much for following us. We appreciate it. We love connecting with other Western North Carolina businesses. Here's what we do. Let us know if we can help. It's literally 30-second little audio clip, but it's in my voice, so it's personalized. And I can't tell you how many clients we've got from that. So, make sure you get into Facebook groups, make sure that you're sneaking in at the appropriate time into people's DMs, specifically on Instagram. 2 hugely powerful tools.
And I have one thing to add to that. You touched on, Andrew, is money will always be the issue in the absence of value. Provide the value. There's no issue with people paying the money for it. Because great example, I have a Garmin watch on. It's 10 times more expensive than an Apple Watch. I could care less about an Apple Watch. People like it for clout, brand stuff. But I value this Garmin more than Apple, so I'll pay the money to have the Garmin instead of the Apple. Just like, iPhones, Androids. Why? Who has iPhone in here? Okay, who has Android? Okay, why do you have Android versus iPhone? Let's go with this debate right
Because
now.
we're right.
Oh, see, exactly.
Because it's the real phone.
The real phone, see, but how much does an iPhone cost versus Android? You're willing to pay that $12 to $13 to $14 versus you go get an Android for maybe, I mean, it's not an iPhone. Don't harp on me, Android people, but because I'm preaching to the choir. But it's like we'll spend more money because it's the real phone. It has the interface we know. We grew up on it. You know, all these things where you don't have to worry about going to change the new interface. Who has a Mac versus a Windows? I'm not going to go to Mac because I don't know the interface versus Windows. But the value of what we possess as money, we will spend the money on it because we value it more than the other, no matter what the price is. So that's one thing that I like. One other thing I wanted to compound on you back there is when you talk about starting a business and do market research, make sure there's a supply and demand. One of my buddies was going to start a porta potty business. Like, dude, great. It all flows downhill. But the biggest thing with it, we looked at the market and there were already 6 different monopolies in the area. So are you going to penetrate this market? Do you have the R&D to do it? Do you have the ads? Do you have the foundation of branding versus advertising versus marketing? And I said, it's like, how are you going to do marketing? We're going to do Google ads or Facebook ads. Okay, great, but your CPC, cost per click, is going to be super high, or acquisition, or you do PPC, or you do LSAs, a lot of different stuff with that. So maybe you do direct mail, maybe you do billboards, maybe you do radio, maybe you do talk shows, maybe you just stick with Facebook because it's lower cost. It's like, know your market, know your research, do it before you dive head first. You don't want to go into a market you have no need or want to supply. So that's all I had.
It's good stuff. It's good stuff. Any other questions or comments on that?
Another thing that we talked about is, this will sound like I'm a preacher or something. I'm completely the opposite, but listen to the biggest marketer, Jesus. He said, ask and you shall receive. Like, you show up to all the networking events, all the people know you, but if you don't ask, you will not get. And you can deliver amazing value. And you're wondering, why don't I get any testimonials, any reviews and all that? No, you have to ask. I have, I don't know, 70 or 80 LinkedIn recommendations. I have more than 1,000 testimonials from past workshop participants. It is because I asked.
Yeah.
And when I walk into a meeting, I bring in 2 binders with participant testimonials, and I tell the person that I can bring in about 10 more binders. And I let them read some of them, flip through them. But ask and you shall receive. And it's not who you know, but who know the people who you know. So like, you know, Jonathan, who does Jonathan know? So when you talk to Jonathan, you know, who can you introduce me, right? Like you told David that you know lots of companies.
Yeah.
So the key is to reach out to the people who you know and ask them.
Yeah, 100%. I use the redneck version of that. You can't catch fish if you don't go fishing. Anybody in here ever catch a fish and not go fishing? I don't think you caught a fish, but you went fishing. It's just that simple.
Does
you
going to
know?
the grocery store count?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you know, you don't get fed unless you go to the grocery store, unless you cook it. So yeah, it's 100% true. I just use the redneck version. So.
Yeah, they will charge you for it.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
What you got?
What are you thinking? Just that simple. What are you thinking? We all think in a lot of different ways. But when you get ready to do a business, and let me ask you this, how many of you right now own and operate a business? Okay. So the question is real. What are you thinking? Is your business doing what you want it to do? Is it on a growth pattern? If you're not satisfied, how are you going to get to where you want to be? Is that what you call a goal? Is that what you call a goal? Do you ever get anywhere without having a goal, spoken or unspoken? It gives us direction, right? So how do you develop the goals? I think if you're in business, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're measuring something. You're measuring whether or not you've got enough money for payroll this Friday, or you're measuring how big your tax bill is going to be next April. But you're measuring something to see where you are in the process. So how do you move? This is my question to you, and I'd love to hear some of the answers. How do you move from where you are to where you want to be. And there's a process we can use. I'll talk about it in a minute if you want me to. How do you get from point A to point B? Tell me.
Since I have the mic, I will go first and then I'll give it to somebody else. We often measure the wrong things. The examples that you gave, it's good to measure those, but those are the wrong things to measure. I should be measuring, and I'm not. I should be measuring what activities take me closer to my goals, which activities are a waste of time, and what activities should I invest my time more in. What you measure can grow. If you don't measure it, you're just wasting your time, and that's one of the mistakes I'm making daily. I'm scattered, I have too many goals. There are two kinds of people, no goals or too many goals. So it's three kind. You're better than
The first two are the
And
same.
you're an entrepreneur, so you get distracted easily too.
easily, yeah. So yeah, I need to pull myself. Great question, because I need to do better.
And while you're passing that to the next person, I'll kind of pipe in. So something that I've kind of implemented in my business in the last couple months is I've closed our doors on Monday. And this is our busiest season that we've ever had in our business, where we just have client after client after client wanting to work with us, which is a blessing we're super thankful for. So it's counterintuitive to actually close our doors on Monday. But to get back to what Steve was talking about, Monday is my reflection day. I take the time to actually look at what I'm measuring and evaluate and think through and spend the time reflecting on how my business is growing, how I'm growing my business, how I'm growing in my business, and is it actually becoming something that I envisioned and wanted it to be, or am I just kind of doing all these busy activities and just going from client appointment to client appointment and building a business that at the end of the day I don't want. So I think as entrepreneurs, that's something that we really need to take the time to measure and to reflect on, because ultimately our business that we've crafted is our baby and we're nurturing it. And are we nurturing it into something that ultimately we're going to be proud of and enjoy and, possibly from a legacy standpoint, pass along to those down the line, our kids or something like that. So I think it's important to take that time to reflect on kind of how our business is going and the things that we're measuring.
Yeah, it's critical. It's a lot of what I spend with every leader that I coach. They start, I need help on time management. I said, well, let's stop calling it time management, because that's just moving stuff around, right? And this, even the time out, right? That time to stop and reflect can be just moving stuff around. My mantra is you have enough time in the day to do the stuff that matters, right? So if you're not getting enough stuff done, or you feel like you haven't got enough time in the day, then you're doing a bunch of stuff that doesn't matter. And so you've got, this comes back to the why, comes back to, so this is actually it's very dear to the Forge Leaders kind of focus, where we say a Forge leader knows who they are and what they need to do next. And it's that statement, like there's two opposite ends, like I'm clear on who I am, I know where I'm going, I know why I'm doing it, my purpose is clear, but I also know what the steps are. I know when I get up tomorrow, I know what I got to do. Right?
Well,
and staying focused on that.
Yeah, tied to that, when you measure things, you get clarity on what matters and you become less busy. The idea in business is to do business, not busyness. But a lot of entrepreneurs, probably that all of us speak to, they go to the time management thing, they say, I don't have enough time. I'm like, listen, there's children out there making 7 figures on YouTube. You got time. We just don't have the right tasks identified, which kind of goes back to the revenue generating tasks as an entrepreneur and spinning that. But we don't understand what those things are until we measure them, and we measure them by creating metrics, right? Business and life in general is a math problem. I say that a lot, but that's all phenomenal points. So if you find yourself being busy, right? And even how you doing today? Busy. I always go, doing what? And then they go, well, the stuff. I'm like, but specifically, like, what are you doing? And they're like, the things. I'm like, yeah, but what does that mean? And they're like, well, and I'm like, well, you're not that busy, are you? And they're like, no, I guess not. I mean, I have that conversation all the time. So, but measuring those things is important. I think he has some other great advice for us. Time to do that. Was there a question? What are you thinking?
Does anybody else want to respond to
Yeah.
that?
What are you thinking? What are you thinking? That was the question.
Yeah, what are you
That's
thinking?
right.
Sometimes I don't want to hear what I'm thinking.
Do we, is the question. Steve Cantori, I've had a company for 32 years. What we've done in the last 4 or 5 years is identify, well, one of the things we found for sure is the 80-20 rule is real. And it's even more, it's really more like a 90-10. We found that what the majority of what we do is energy procurement based out of Pennsylvania, where it's an open market. So we only work with commercial clients, and we help them to buy future market dollars for energy costs. So we found that our top 25 clients were about 75% of the value. We found that the bottom 100 were, I think, under 5%. So, and that cutoff was somebody who was using about 300,000 kilowatt hours a year and less. That would be kind of like an average restaurant, for example. They'd be about 300,000. So we stopped spending time chasing those kind of clients. And we started focusing more on clients that are 24/7, manufacturing, hotels, those kind of things. And then like property management groups, because they typically will manage multiple facilities in multiple areas. So we've really kind of honed in on where is it the best place to spend our time, and not chase smaller accounts. Now, we just started a business selling EV charging stations. And we have found through the people that we've been working with that have been in this longer, like you would think that hotels would be a good place to go. And they are, because eventually they're all going to need them. EV owners are starting to look when they travel for hotels with charging stations, so they don't get stuck somewhere. They can plug in overnight. However, traditionally what they have found is that hotels are cheap. So they're unwilling to spend some of the money they need to put the station in, because it can be pretty involved. So here again, when we identify what type of companies to go after to spend your time, while there's plenty of them and you would think that there's a lot of opportunity there, they're not worthy of spending a lot of your time chasing. Good point. That's all I got. Thank you.
That's good.
That was a good one. What you learn in a situation like that, a lot of times, I'm not saying this is your case, but it might be, you thought you were selling EV stations, but you're in the education business.
Absolutely.
Anybody else have any question? What are you thinking? Okay, well, I'm going to give you some homework, and then these guys can chip in. If you have a goal, state it. Make sure that it's smart, and you've all heard that before, right? What is it?
Specific,
Measurable,
achievable.
achievable, realistic, time-driven. Okay, so always set the goals that way. Build your deadline on it. Now, if you will do this in your business, you're going to soar. Know what your primary goal is that is time-driven. What am I going to do in 5 years? What am I going to do in 1 year? What am I going to do this month? And you'll find that we all overestimate what we can do today or this week. And we grossly underestimate what we can do in 5 years. That fits into the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, because 80% of us are going to miss what we can accomplish in 5 years. You can be anywhere you want to be in 5 years. If you set the goal, then pick your priorities under that goal very carefully. And my suggestion is, because we can all remember it, is pick 3. You have a goal. To get to that goal, pick 3 priorities. What are the things that are going to get you to that goal? And under each one of those 3 priorities, pick 3 tactics. You're going to wind up with 9 tactics to operate in your business. And you can do that. And as you begin to do that, if you haven't done it already, you'll see what your strengths are and you'll see what your weaknesses are. Coach over here is going to say, don't spend any time at all on your weaknesses trying to make them stronger. Follow your strengths. And if you have a weak spot, get a virtual assistant somewhere to help you with it. Or hire somebody to help you with it.
He would say that.
So you got these 9 things that you can focus on that are going to get you to where you want to be. So will you do your homework? Sit down and write down your goal. Give it 3 priorities and give each priority 3 tactics and see where you wind up.
And that math works, and I'm going to piggyback on that real quick. On the first part of that is the S, specific. A lot of the people that I coach, that we talk about SMART goals, and then the specific part, they go, well, wealthy. What's that mean to you? It's different for everybody. Or they go, leave a legacy. Okay, well, that's cool. What's that mean to you? We've got to put definition to these things in a very specific manner in order to understand where we're going. It's like a target. When you put something in your GPS, you put in an address, or you don't put in Greenville. You put in where you're going in Greenville, or you don't put in a state. And then it gives you specific directions about how to arrive at that destination. But in our lives, we don't pick very specific destinations. You put a time to it, you make it a specific thing. Who do you want to become when you're a certain age, or 3 years from now, or 5 years from now? What does that specifically look like? Kind of just to tie to that, a lot of people that I work with, they miss that first piece, and they're very broad, and that makes the 9 other targets that they're working on also very broad in general. So, just a thought there.
That's good. All right, so any questions from the floor? What do you guys got? All right.
We've got some people that submitted some questions online and emailed them in, so we'll run through those. But anybody got any other questions real quick? Just to second that before we rock and roll on. Anything?
And you guys can, as stuff comes up, continue the conversation.
Yeah, engage. That's the whole point of the thing. Andrew, I'll let you start reading some of those questions. But as we talk about these things and these topic points, if something kind of piques your interest, speak up about it. That's what we're here for, to help.
So Nick wrote in and he said, with an election year coming up and corresponding uncertainty of an expanding or contracting economy, should we push to grow or plan to save?
That's a challenging question. So, in business, there's always a top line and a bottom line. And I also think that that's a very conditional response, because it depends on how healthy your top line is in your business and what unhealthy items you have on the bottom line of your business. I could think of someone specific in a situation where they had some equipment sitting on a property that was not being productive, and so it was not adding value to the top line, and it was costing them a lot of money on the bottom line. And so with things slowing up in the business that he was in, it made a lot of sense to liquidate to help on his bottom line. And then also, but on the flip side of that, it's always a good idea to continue to expand the top line, sales and revenue, right? Those are great revenue generating tasks. So focus on growing the top line, but always pay attention to the bottom line. And some of these guys probably have a lot to say about that. So.
Yeah, I think the answer is yes.
Yeah.
Look, it depends. I mean, there's a couple of things in there. Don't obviously, talking about economic conditions, a specific question here. Obviously, don't necessarily go into debt to, try and avoid debt as much as possible to fund your business and do that, particularly if it's going to tough times. I'll happily sit down over a beer and tell you my story of losing $500,000 and 7 years of my life trying to figure it out. So don't do that. In Australia, I don't know what it's like here, it's probably similar here. 2/3 of small businesses in Australia are funded by private debt, like the house or something like that. So just avoid that wherever you can. Short-term strategies maybe, but just avoid it if you can. So, but then you talk to guys like Warren Buffett, and they love a declining market. So there's certainly opportunities. I work in, I work with construction companies, I work with manufacturing, and they all have different architects, that sort of thing. They all have different strategies based on what they see the market doing. And the market keeps threatening to collapse and then seems to bounce somehow. I don't know how it's doing it right now, but it is. But so make sure you've got a good buffer. Always keep, there's good principles in terms of financial management that we learn personally. They're great principles in business too. Make sure you've got a good amount of savings. Don't just spend everything because it's there. Just doing simple things like keeping money aside when you earn it, because you've got to pay a tax bill at some stage. Keep 30-odd%. There's just little things you can do, and they can really help you in those times as well, so you don't have to make reactionary changes. Interestingly enough, we look back on businesses, particularly, you look at businesses that shed staff, for example, when COVID hit and other times, and the ones who battled through, they had some resources to do it. Big companies down to little startups and smaller businesses. We watched a company in the Philippines that I do some work with, and she had 300 people and refused to let any of them go, and they just stopped production completely. They couldn't do anything. She refused to let them go, and all 300 are back employed now. The company went from strength to strength, was more profitable. So there's obviously things you can do to make this work. And remember, this is not just a game of, is my business successful, or is the economy good or not? Should I live in fear? Should I live, it's really about that planning and that strategy, knowing where you're going with it, and being able to really push through those difficult times.
When you're making money, who do you pay first?
Yourself.
I'm sorry?
Yourself.
Wrong answer.
My employees.
Oh, you got the wrong answer. I'm sorry. I hope I'm being shocking today with a couple of these things, but the first person you pay is Uncle Sam. Because if you don't pay Uncle Sam, you're not going to stay in business. They will shut you down. So you pay Uncle Sam first, but the economic model is based on your ability to do those things that we've been talking about, building those relationships. And you mentioned recession proofing through building those relationships. So solidify, if there's a thunderstorm on the economic horizon, solidify those relationships. And that is your first priority. A couple of other things come to mind. And one of those is that we should control what we can control. There are a lot of things out there that you can't control, and apparently nobody else can either. But God has a plan, so we'll see what happens. A guru told us a couple of years ago, because he had been through 4 recessions, and he's a multi-billionaire now, and he said this: when the market drops, whatever your particular market is, t-shirts that are not t-shirts, but they're ads, right? Whatever your market is, energy, when the market drops, is the best time to gain market share.
Yep.
Because your competitor is going to be struggling. Just make sure that you've got the cash flow to do it and get it done.
It's phenomenal advice.
Well, I agree with that. I work with Asheville Radio Group kind of until I get other things going. But yeah, that's exactly what we say. Because when your competitor is pulling away because they're freaking out, then you're going to have 100% more voice because they've pulled out of the market. So that's exactly right. And it's shown over and over again, all the numbers and statistics show that when you decide to actually build your marketing campaign, to build your advertising, you come ahead even stronger, not only through the recession, but outside of that.
I went through a recession. What was I doing? I was in the broadcast business, and that's what you call advertising. And I learned a lesson during 1972 or so when we went through a recession. It was really one of the first ones that had ever affected our broadcast business. And I was in sales at the time, and I learned that I could handle about 80 accounts in any given month and do it effectively. So I'm always trying to strive for 120 accounts. During that recession, I lost 72 accounts, and they had to be replaced. And the lesson I learned is this: in answer to that broader question, what do? Do you grow or do you pull back? And I found a whole new clientele, because some people were advertising when times were good, and the others felt the need to advertise when times were bad.
I think it's interesting, and it ties back into something you said earlier, Andrew, about just making sure I've got this almost regimented time where I stop to think and I stop to observe. That's a key thing, right? You can't, you know what's coming if you've got your head down and you're just going as hard as you can. So this is part of the importance of that, not just figuring out ways to strategize your own business, but being able to see the market, be able to hear what's going on, get a sense for something, get some discernment into what's happening. And so that's where those times become really critical. And I know a lot of people that the big stories you hear about, like I had a friend, he had a company in Kazakhstan. In fact, I nearly went to work with him rather than coming to America. And but right when we were planning to go, the oil crisis 2015, the oil price dropped. He was in the supply business for oil and gas in Kazakhstan, had about $120 million business. It went down to $50 million in about 3 weeks. For two reasons. One was oil and gas, and the other reason was that the government repegged the tenge, the local currency, 3 times. And each day, he said, I just lost another $10 million. Every time they pegged the tenge against the US dollar. And so, but what was interesting was he then kind of came back from that a little bit, and COVID hit. Another 6, 7 years, or 5, it was 3 years ago now. But so it was about 4 or 5 years later. COVID hits. All his competitors went out of business. And he was still there. He built in some really good strategies. One of them was us deciding to come to America rather than go to Kazakhstan. I would have been his CEO today. but and there were other reasons in that. But it was just interesting to see that he had things in great places. He had incredible relationships. He had some good investors. In all this stuff, with everything going down, he built schools. He built hospitals. He went into 7 different countries in Central Asia. And today he's a $150 million business with very few competitors.
Yeah, to compound on everything, I agree with everything you guys are saying. I mean, we started 2019, so right when COVID hit, no advertising. You guys know. But I think the other thing that I stress about, obviously having election coming up, and obviously broadcast, all of our clients are buying ads now. Like now, before the market gets flooded with political ads style. And obviously, once you get to that realm on our side, we want to think obviously a year in advance, because next year, ads are being bought up at a ridiculously price, and then all our smaller clients are already getting kicked out because political campaigns come through and buy all the ads. So it's like planting seeds now to reap the harvest later on type style with having a good price. But also, I think the biggest thing is keep your powder dry. I mean, make sure you have rainy day funds all the time. I mean, you can't just rely on paycheck to paycheck, or when clients come in to pay, and you can't say, well, I'm gonna spend all the money, have fun, go get swag, go do this, and then obviously recession hits or something, and you have no way. You have to obviously let employees go, and there's issue.
Yeah, totally. I always say, understand the difference between income and if-come.
Yeah.
I like that.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Write that down.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I know somebody who does t-shirts.
There you go. We'll be looking for that on LinkedIn.
There you go.
All right, so we got another online question there. Andrew, if you want to read.
So Lizzie wrote in and she asked, what was your biggest success and your biggest failure, and how did the failure inspire your growth? And I think maybe we can all kind of get that real quick. Biggest.
All right, so we get some pizzas then or something?
Yeah, how about a coffee?
I thought this was only 2 hours.
I'll go first, unless you have one you want to go first.
You lead off.
Let's see here. So let's see here. Biggest success and your biggest failure. That's a good one. I can think of some big wins in life when I understood what God made me capable of, right? You know, we stand out and we look at things like you go to a pretty place. You're like, wow, God made that. Well, I got good news. God made you too, right? So you ever look in the mirror and look at yourself and go, you know what? God made me to do something. So I think that's probably one of the biggest wins for me is recognizing that it's not the story that everybody else tells about yourself, but it's the story that our Creator tells about us. And then when we live in that, what we can be capable of to serve Him and serve our community. So that's probably one of my biggest successes. Biggest failures? Trying to think on that one. I mean, I've lost a lot. You know, we all do in entrepreneurship. You go through a lot of losses. People think it's an easy road. It's just we were homeless, lived in a camper at one point, but I wouldn't really consider that a failure. So that's a tough question because I see failure as an opportunity to learn, and I think that ties back to your mindset. You know, when we do things, or when you're an entrepreneur, you got to have pretty thick skin. So a lot of things that may have been a failure, I see as another stepping block in life. You know, the good news is that we're gonna wake up another day, regardless of how hard it may be today. We're gonna get to wake up another day and do this again. And so when we kind of look at it from that perspective, it's not real hard. But we've lost a lot of things. Like I had a 6-figure corporate job. I got kicked off that team for political business reasons and ethical reasons. I was holding them to a higher standard than they wanted to. So I didn't get to play that game anymore. But that was, so I'd probably shift that question instead of failure to what's some of your biggest challenges. Because I think that we all probably view failure as an opportunity to learn. You don't fail, you just keep going. But some of the biggest struggles was overcoming my own self-doubt, self-fear. What if, we're looking for that right time to become an entrepreneur? It's like having a kid. When's the right time? Well, you just can't plan enough, right? You just have one and then you figure it out. So entrepreneurship is the same way. If you're thinking, should I do this? Jump off the boat without a life jacket and figure out how to swim. And so those are definitely challenging times, but I think a lot of the advice that's been given here today talks about you can be ready for that a little bit. You can have a strategy. You can have a plan. You can have goals. You can have SMART goals. You can have some savings, to try to cover some things. But there's never really one right moment where the paths cross and the stars align and you're like, you know what? I think I'm gonna be an entrepreneur today. You just you trip over it and then you kind of step up and you're like, oh no, now what? But with the right people and the right mentors, and I think that we've all had mentors in our lives. I know I have that have given me a lot of advice, which is why we want to do this. We want to help people navigate, those moments and those ideas. But let me tell you this too, you can do anything you set out to do. From an entrepreneurship standpoint, if you do have specific enough goals and targets and you build a bridge to get between them and then you got thick enough skin and you just keep going, you can do anything. And shift your mindset and perspective. Like entrepreneurship, you think 100 grand's a lot, 10 or 200 grand, 300 grand, $500,000, $1 million, $2 million, $10 million. I know people who are billionaires and they drive around in an '87 Toyota pickup truck. So you can literally do anything that you set out to do, and I think that's the point of it is you got to set out to do it.
Yeah, I think that's good, man. And something that you were sharing that kind of triggered me, something that my coach tells me is when you're faced with a decision, and I'll tie it back in with biggest success and failure, but when you're faced with a decision from an entrepreneurial standpoint, from your mindset, it's not so much about scrutinizing and making the right decision. It's using the best information that you have at your disposal, but making that decision right over time. So once you make that decision, you're committed to it, invest in making that decision right over time. And for my biggest success and failure is kind of one and the same. So I'm executive director of Full Power Ministries, and we produce content for Christian men to equip and empower them to live in their daily lives. And with that, we pretty much were blessed and able to fund that ourselves, but I had no experience on how to run a nonprofit. I didn't know how to do things with donors, with fundraising, et cetera, and I financially ran it into the ground. And interestingly enough, though, because I've had to take my foot off the gas with Full Power Ministries, we launched 828 Biz. It's been hugely successful, and interestingly enough, God has seen fit to bless the ministry at the same time we have literally doubled our viewership since we've taken our foot off the posting daily gas pedal, which is it's completely counterintuitive to what the algorithm says, what Business Sense says. So all that to say is you can take your biggest failures and they can immediately be turned around into massive growth and success. It's making the decision right over time and committing to that process. Good stuff.
30 seconds, 30 seconds, no.
I'll take the same 30 seconds.
I don't want to be disrespectful.
But I think that's good.
I don't want to be disrespectful to the young lady that wrote that question,
Yeah.
because we all have asked that question somewhere in our lives.
Oh, absolutely.
But we all need a new perspective about what failure is. And you said it a moment ago. It's a learning experience. And it's just one step after the other. And there are people who teach fail fast and fail often.
It's a great book. Yeah, right.
It wasn't anything you said that didn't say, I have open house for school. Thank you. This has been wonderful.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
Any other thoughts on it?
Yeah, one more about failure. For most people, I'm older than I look. So with that comes wisdom. How do you get wisdom? By failure. Okay. And the thought there is fail fast, fail forward, on all of those things. And you just got to do that. Go ahead.
He just stopped and said, I was enamored by Brad.
We were all listening.
Now I've got to talk. It's interesting. So, like having trained as a coach, and I trained through the International Coaching Federation kind of system in Australia. And one of the things that they kept saying, there's no such thing as failure, there's only feedback. And I always say, I got a ton of feedback. And in marriage, in life, in being a dad, in being a son, in running a business, in running a bunch of businesses, crashing a business, being successful, whatever it might be. It's funny, the highs and lows, like you say, they often happen out of the same thing. I mean, my journey dramatically changed when we decided, ill-informed information at the time, but at the time we decided to close. I had a fairly big marketing agency back in Australia. We mainly service federal government and large corporate. We were based in Canberra, our capital city, so it's kind of like being in DC. And so government, it was 2007, the Australian economy was roaring along and kept roaring along whilst America fell to crap, basically, in that 08-09 period. It kept roaring along, everyone except for the government. And we were highly capitalized. I wasn't watching the business close enough. I'd already moved out of the business as a director and had moved up the coast because my son was quite ill at the time. And so next thing I just get this knock on the door from the tax office, our IRS, and they're saying, you owe us $140,000. I'm like, no, I don't. It's like, and then sure enough, my business partner, who I'd left to run the business, was not doing the right thing. And not out of deliberacy, just out of incompetency, unfortunately. And so that then ballooned into well over $500,000, of which we had some equity in the house and not a lot. And so we're now looking at creditors. And in Australia, companies don't go bankrupt, individuals do. So if you're a director of a company, you have no protection like you do here. So they come after you personally, and they'll not bankrupt you. And so we faced all of that, not knowing what that would look like. As I said, it was about $500,000. And so it took me about 2 months probably to peel myself off the floor. and about 3 months in, I started hearing from God again. I'm just like, all right. So it's the one thing, I think everything you said, I 100% agree, except with your definition of hope. Hope is actually one of the most powerful words, and you can absolutely build a strategy on it. Don't listen to anyone else, because hope is confident expectation of good, and God saw fit for hope to underpin everything. Okay? So my company was called Market Hope. And it still is. Funny enough, it survived. It still is called Market Hope in Australia. And so basically what happened there, we went through this whole journey, the money just kept piling up, we had people around us who were just there to pick over the bones, we had a couple of $1 million business, they sold the client list for $15,000. I mean, it was highway robbery. I'm just watching one thing after another and just everything taken away from us. The bank turned around and locked everything down on my house, and so we went on this process where I said, I want to do the right thing. And my attorney, my lawyer back in Australia said, well, you can just declare bankrupt and this will be over in 3 to 5 years. He said, you won't be able to travel. There's a few things that take your passport off you. There's a whole bunch of things they do. And I said, I really don't care about that so much. I'm not going to declare bankruptcy. And I basically had 4 big creditors. I went back and dealt with them personally. I rang them up, talked to people. There was only 1 that played hard with us. 2 that we sold a house and were able to pay some stuff down. They still got cents on the dollar. But I got letters from those creditors saying the way you handled that was really honourable. Right? So this is my story now. And in that, so this is when I was the CEO of the Council of Small Business of Australia. I'm advising the Prime Minister on how business works, and I'm sitting with the tax office. Then, this is again the relationship thing. The next thing I turn up to one of our 5 times a year, we did an on-site with the tax office where they told us their policies and we dumped on them basically. And they sat me next to the commissioner, who is the head of that area, the Commissioner for Debt and Collection. And I sit down, this guy's a Queenslander, so Queenslanders are our Texans, all right? And this guy sits down and goes, so mate, I hear you got a bit of a problem with the tax office. And I looked at the lady organist, she goes, he knows. And I'm like, yeah. And anyway, so we actually started this process. In that I had some good believer friends as well. I'm not trying to turn this into a religious discussion, but that really helped. And in that journey, we launched an organisation called Wind Up Well. And for a whole year, just during the 08-09, companies were just going blur, just falling over. We were talking, I became close friends and even started counselling the Commissioner for Debt and Collection. He was going through a marriage breakup. It was weird. And so we developed this whole program and they got behind it. And so I just had this guy, like I said, I've got another one. And I just sent in the case. And so, we had testimonies of people coming back from the brink of suicide because we were able to help them through debts that they felt were insurmountable. All the time, I got 0 help on mine until one day I got a call from the tax office. And they said, is this Jonathan Charles Brake? Yep. Raw Momentum? Yep. And I'm like, oh, here we go. What are they going to hold me for? And they said, we just letting you know that due to they call it service to the Commonwealth when you help the government. It'll be the last time I'll be accused of helping the government. But then, they say, due to your service to the Commonwealth, we're cancelling all of your debt.
Oh.
Like $50,000 just went like that. And so it was just like, these were the highlights. And that was actually, so funnily enough, it was about $500,000 we still had to pay back. And we paid it, I paid it literally the month before I got on the plane to move to America. So there was just story after story of we just persevered. 7 years it took. And so then there's that, and then because of course there's that story you can tell. Thankfully I didn't have well-meaning Christians sitting there going, oh, well, God's got a plan for this, because they would have met my right hand of justice, that's for sure. Or forgiveness or something. But I had good people, like I had a guy who headed up a big Christian group down there, and he'd ring me up, and he'd go, so Jono, they call me in Australia, so Jono, how's it going? And I said, good. He goes, excuse the language, says, all right, enough of the bullshit. How are you going? That was really a question that in Australia, it's Christian to swear at each other. And,
It is in the South.
It is in the South. That's why I love it here. And anyway, so he just said, look, this guy was one of the most buttoned up guys I'd ever met. So if he swore at you, it was almost prophetic. It's like you paid attention. But there were just those moments. We just got to help people in that process. We did see miracles happen in there as well. And then out of that, I then shifted from marketing into kind of the leadership strategy stuff that I do today. And now I sit alongside these people and I'm able to just, I totally understand what's going on. And in terms of successes, I think this year, we've been in America for 8 years. We started with that immigrant story, right? Came in, we had one client, but really started from scratch, We came in a 20-foot shipping container, not us personally, just the cat. No, I'm kidding. And so we came in a 20-foot shipping container, and 8 years later, we've turned that into, a pretty good business. We've had some great opportunities. We've met incredible people, like Andrew, and now these guys as well. And, launching businesses and seeing businesses, bringing stuff over here, making connections. And so everything's, so that's that whole kind of, no such thing as failure, there's only feedback.
Yep.
Everything is feedback, and just being able to walk people through that without the platitudes of, well, there's a better purpose, there's something better for you. Don't say that. All right.
Yeah, and real quick to that, I love that story. And it just...
I hated it.
You hated it. It was terrible at the time.
It's a good one.
Now it's great. But it's funny because I always say God's not random, right? And I think he's got a sense of humor too, because it's not random that you were working on that sitting next to that guy, navigating that at the time. And so wherever you're at in life, always remember God's not random, And I think we forget that a lot, that God has smart goals. He's specific. And so whatever you're at, wherever you're at, and whatever you're going through, just remember that, Keep that in the back of your mind, or the front of your mind. That's great.
I'm glad I shut up when I did a while ago. That was a tremendous story.
That was good.
Thanks for sharing.
Do you know what? We don't share these stories enough.
No.
Yeah.
And I've been told a couple of times, don't tell them that story. I'm like, no.
I think it's a great
It's my
story.
story.
It's important.
And an entrepreneur, we understand.
Probably everybody in here has some kind of story. But let me tell you how I started measuring things probably about 8 years ago. Because we all fall into lapses of integrity at times. We don't intend to do it, but it can happen. And it has happened to me on occasion. And the last time it happened, it was a small thing with a big hurt. It was a small thing in almost everybody's opinion except my wife's. And when I saw her hurt, I said, I'm changing things. And my view of success went through a major transition. And let me tell you what it's based on right now. And that is having the highest view of standards of conduct that I can have for myself. And if I live up to those standards, no matter what else is going on around me, no matter what else is going on in the world, if I live up to my own standards of sincere integrity, then I have succeeded for that day.
I agree 100%. I keep those standards on a to-do list on my phone and check them off every day. Winning the day, winning has a snowball effect. And when you can start with yourself and you set your standards high, because we've all been through those things that we've struggled with in moments of integrity. And so I think that's a key point to take away from this, is that that's a very, very, very significant part of what you do, is having standards for yourself that add value to your life, that you can check off every day and go, okay, I won the day. It's good stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting. I cut my teeth as a coach, coaching long-term unemployed kids in Australia, and had about 250 of them over 18 months. And we ran them through a program called the Hope Coaching Program. And the last thing was discovering happiness, right? We always think about happiness. Like, what does that even mean? And what I learned was it's actually a very pragmatic outcome. And we said, happiness is basically living congruent to your values, living through your value set, and getting momentum. So getting after something, you've got a plan, you've got a direction, and you've got the drive and the energy to do it. I still live by that. So in terms of how the two correlate together, and it's okay to get after happiness.
Yeah, I think we all live and want to become entrepreneurs. It is tough. We leave at 9 to 5 to work 24/7. But at the end of the day, I think, seeking some level of happiness adds significant value to our lives, way more so than $1.
Yeah.
And I'm real, so that's good stuff.
Yeah.
I know I've been quiet. So I was going to actually use only 30 seconds, but
He's got it.
I'm
All right. We're good.
We'll give you a
I know we're talking about business, but there's also personal, obviously success and failures, and obviously feedbacks, I should say. And I think the biggest thing with it is always see something that's where I feel like I'm dating myself type style. when I talk about Harry Potter references. I'm just saying, I know it's more recent. Yeah, don't laugh. But I think about the phoenix. Obviously, the phoenix, burns, was ashes, and is reborn type style. And I think about no matter what we do in business, how we're doing it, there's always the hope. There's always rebuilding. There's always that fire inside us that keeps us going, no matter if it is personal, if it is business. I've had a lot of business failures. I've had a lot of personal failures between my marriage and my daughter. I mean, it's always a constant. We're always working on me. Let's just say that. Style. Any husbands in the office?
They're working on me too.
Yeah, exactly how it goes. But I feel like, no matter what it is, business does correlate to home life, and home life does correlate to business and how that happens. And so there's success and failures in both of those aspects, and you should understand how to build from that. If it is more of like a integrity type style, or if it's just a moral standpoint, those type of things. So that's all I say.
That's good stuff.
That's great.
I think we can take a few more questions.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions from the audience now that we've kind of stirred up some cool stuff or fun topics? What you got, Larry? Hook him up with the mic.
Don't trip me.
Appreciate it, E.G.
Doing a great job.
Hi there.
You're hired.
I'm Larry Nordlinger, Blue Ridge Mountains Media, real estate photography. While we're in the personal side of things, Justin, you just said, we left a 9 to 5 to get a 24/7. How do you guys, any of you want to answer, how do you address the carving out, time, for your family?
Yeah, that's tough. That's tough. Yeah, it's a tough one. So a couple of things for me. One is that I call it religiously, but I take a regular day off a week. It's Saturday for me. So people get so frustrated, they're sending me messages. I think you even sent me some Saturday messages, and I just don't respond to them. I make sure my phone's in some semblance of do not disturb or something like that, which is really easy to do on an iPhone. And
Can you do that? You do that on Android?
Android? They don't want you to not be disturbed. But there's certain rules that I put around things. I'm always checking. Like, I'm married. I've been married for 28 years. Got kids who are 20 and 16, and I always said, my prayer back in the early days is I want it all, right? I want a successful business. I want to do well at what I do. I want to be known and enjoyed for what I do, and have a successful family, marriage and kids. And so far, so good. 20 and 16-year-old, we're doing a roll, 17 next month. And so, so it's just, so the other thing was, of course, being in Australia, I travel a lot. So my first trip actually for business, for working with this staffing company to America was actually 10 years ago in November, and my daughter came with me. So we had Thanksgiving here in Hendersonville. It snowed. That should have been a really good sign that I shouldn't have moved here. And I'm kidding. I'm not a fan of snow. But it was just wonderful. So we had a friend, person we knew. She was a teacher at Mills River Elementary, and so she took Hannah in for a couple of days. My contact brought in a few teams of leaders, and so the kids came with me. And then we went and hung out in Colorado. We went and did some time in LA driving around, and she sat there with 10 years old. She sat there with a paper map and directed me around LA, would you believe? Los Angeles, if you can't understand my accent. And so there was just moments like that. I've taken both my kids to New Zealand twice each, and done stuff. I've been able to take them on different things. In fact, I got to a point where if a client didn't like my kids being around, I wouldn't do business with them.
That's good.
And so that worked well. Sometimes it limited what I could do. So that side of things. The other thing was, as a traveler, when I came home, realizing that my family had a schedule. My wife set that schedule, and I had to be part of that schedule, not them be part of mine. And that caused the most problems of all. If anybody has a traveling schedule, that caused the most problems of all, where I'd come in and she'd just go, you just come in, and the kids are like, Daddy's home, yeah! We're going out for dinner, we're going to the beach, we're doing all this stuff. We lived on the beach. And I'm like, I'm trying to get them to do their homework and have a bath and clean their teeth. I'm like, well, that's really boring. So anyway, life's great. And there were times, like I did a trip to the UK. I went and did business in London for 2 weeks. It happened to coincide with the Easter school holidays in Australia, so my wife came at the end of that, and we had 2 weeks in the UK together. We left the kids doing whatever they did at home, But no, we brought them in.
They're still all alive.
So the bottom line is there's no one great answer, but there's certainly consistency of communication, like how are you doing?
How you doing?
Right? It's a great question to ask your spouse. Make sure you're used to asking that 'cause you might get a slap. But just like how are we doing? Are you getting regular date nights? Are you doing things that are going to invest into those relationships?
That's a
So
big thing.
important.
Me and my wife always have a sushi Saturday. No matter what, every Saturday night we have sushi because she loves sushi. But I think it's also the respect factor of communicating with your spouse about, hey, this is what I'm doing. Do I have your blessing? Do I respect enough, obviously, your time, energy, and effort? Because, marketing doesn't sleep. That's the one thing I'll say. I mean, yes, I give you props. Try to call your cell early today. Says, we are closed. Like, it's Monday. That's the first thing I realized. Like, no, I can't reach him. Time's out. Obviously, I got to hold you.
He answered my call.
But it's a respect factor. When I first was building my business, it's like the same thing. It's like I was working every single day. There are no days off. And then my wife understood that, I'm going to take 3 years to try to build an empire. And then after that, then I can dedicate more time. So it's that willingness and respect of obviously asking my wife that stuff, listening to her, because I've realized to be a really good listener, not a very quiet talker. Because you can offload after, being all day working, you come home and you just offload everything that's happened that day. Or you're the opposite, you're just quiet. You don't want to talk to anybody when you get home. So there's those respect factors that I think, like, setting up schedules, making sure you're consistent with that, and listening and respecting your spouse.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Just one more thing, is that a very early piece of advice I got from a guy who failed really badly, marriage, business, all sorts of stuff. And he said, I learned that this whole anomaly we call work-life balance doesn't exist. And he said, what I did learn from that, and he did, and he was able to really restore himself and so forth. He said, I learned that work-life balance is knowing the season you're in and managing the key players in that season. And so there are seasons. It's like, for the next year, I'm going to be working Saturdays, so I can get this, Monday to Friday and Saturday, or Sunday as well, or late nights or whatever, so I can get this business off the ground. But here's how we're going to structure this. And by the way, it's a season. And you've got to be in agreement with that. I would say if, for example, if family or partners aren't in agreement with where that's at, then you've got to just really decide, is this the right time? And that's an okay answer too. So anyway, just wanted to add that to what you're saying.
I agree.
That's good stuff. For me, it's on my to-do list. It's on my daily, on my phone, family time. I make sure that we spend some, like entrepreneurs, if you do a lot of things, you like lists or calendars or a schedule. And so for me, I go through there at the end of the day and I'm like, okay, I did that, okay, I did that, okay, I did that. And I see that pop up and I'm like, oh, crap, I didn't do that. Okay, I guess I'm done working for the day. Family time's got to happen. And so when you make those things a priority and then, or you put them in front, you keep them in front of you, like top of mind, your family should be top of mind. They shouldn't get your leftovers, That's just one of the things I do. I'm simple. So I can take it on. Simple is good.
Let me ask you a question. If you wanted to talk to your banker on Saturday, what would you do?
Nothing.
Nothing. Because he has taught you what to expect. You teach people how to treat you.
Yeah.
And if you don't teach people how to treat you, they'll just treat you any way they want to.
They misbehave.
That happens in your family. It happens in your business. It happens in all of your general relationships. You have to teach people how to treat you. If you want to be a professional, see, there's this big gap that's not a real gap because we can close it. There's a really good book out called The Gap of the Game. Try that one sometime. But as we're talking about being entrepreneurial, we're going to grow out of that. Or we're going to sell that business and start another one. So that's a true entrepreneur. Is somebody who builds businesses to profit on those businesses when they turn over to somebody else. But most of us are business people. And we're going to go through those stages from entrepreneurial to purposeful. And if you do that in all these relationships, if you do that right now by setting your schedule, make it a professional schedule. I'm available. So I'm available. This is what I tell people. I'm available in my real estate business from noon to 7 p.m. Because I have other things to do in those morning hours that I am not going to let you penetrate. So it's that process of teaching people how to treat you.
Yeah, that's great.
And if you don't have a time block, sorry, go ahead. Yeah, no, that's phenomenal. It's funny and it excites me to hear that because I don't make up real estate appointments until afternoon because I have a morning routine to do. And I usually end my day at 7 or 8 o'clock. So it's kind of funny to hear that in the real estate space because people are available to talk about real estate typically in the afternoon or the evenings. But time blocking. I don't know if you have a time block, but I have a time block. My wife has a time block and they're both on our refrigerator. You can stand in our kitchen and go, where are we? What are they doing? Oh, and it's a target. They obviously change. But it gives us, again, a metric or a measurable tool to go, oh, it's 3 o'clock. Well, they're probably there. Or I'm probably here. This is kind of what they're doing. But that ties to communication, too. It's a communication tool.
I was just going to say, one of the things that we always say is you can't expect what you don't express.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of tying like to what you say is asking about the banker. Well, he's expressed that expectation that he's not going to be there on Saturday. So even with communication on business or spouse or whatever, you can't expect what you don't express.
Yeah, it's a smart one. Right. Yeah.
Plug.
I can check. Is that on the list? Okay.
I got that on listening.
You got a question in the back?
So outside of like conventional norms, can I not use it?
Yeah, exactly.
Go ahead and use it so we get it for the video though.
Yeah, because we're making content. You can be on there. You're good.
So outside like conventional norms, how do you filter folks who you want to be a part of your team for your overall success? So outside of conventional norms, these folks are going to contribute towards your networks, your net worth, your business, your revenue, your profit. Outside conventional norms, how do you filter through those people for your overall success?
Are they your conventional norms?
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
define that real quick. What do you mean
So
by
like,
conventional norms?
typically, I'm thinking about like interview processes. What creative solutions do you have to filter through who you want to be part of your success team and not?
So not necessarily interviews and employees,
Correct.
but relationships and business
Correct.
partners.
Yes.
Okay, so how do we pick relationships and business partners that add value to our lives?
Exactly.
And then I think for me, I drill it down just to one word: clarity. When you take the time to know yourself, know your brand, know your business inside and out, take that time to reflect and really think, what is my mission? What is my messaging? What am I about? Who am I serving? What am I bringing as value to these people I'm serving? Then that gives you the clarity to be able to say, okay, these guys are a great peer group for me. They add value to my life. They benefit me. That way you can know yourself so intimately and so clearly, and your business in the same way, so that you can have the right people in the right seats on the bus so that they can contribute and you likewise contribute back to them.
So is that clarity? I'm going to list out everything that's going to be required of you if you're going to join this team. And if you say yes, you say yes, but I'm going to front load everything you need to know before you hop on board.
No, I wouldn't say that. I would say, like, as you're kind of like vetting these people, having a strong understanding of who you are and where you're going, as you kind of like have conversations and communicate with these people, it's going to become very apparent if they're congruous with that or not. And I wouldn't say that you need to have like a hard and fast list of questions. It's more that conversational piece of really just kind of getting to know somebody and have them two-way street get to know you and make sure that that's going to be a win-win relationship.
Yeah, so a couple of quick things on that. Who you hang out with probably isn't who will add the most value to your life. Does that make sense? So typically our friends don't fit that category. Usually it's a mentor or somebody else who has been there or done that. But let's use this situation, this moment in this room as a primary example. Me and Andrew have known each other for 3 weeks? We met on Facebook 3 weeks ago. We said, hey, what's up? Hey, what's up? I like what you do. I like what you do. Then we got on the phone, and then we had an in-person meeting. And so you can, when you do things enough, you can sit down with somebody and understand real quick whether or not they're going to show up and add value to a moment in your life. And then he's like, hey, I want to do this 8-2-8 day thing. And I'm like, hey, we do these power panel things. I know some people, you know some people. Let's put some marketing together. Britton helped with that. And so we put the thing together, and here we are in a room having an event 3 weeks later with great conversation and a great panel of people. By which we didn't sit down and say, we didn't write out a list and go, okay, well, you're going to do these things and I'm going to do these things. And we didn't really even have an agenda at that moment, but we just flowed well together. And, this event has added a lot of value to me personally, and I think that these guys have added a lot of value. So it's kind of like the question of, do you grow or cut when the market's slowing down? It's there's no specific answer. I think it's based on you personally and your relationship with people and where you're trying to go. If you have clarity yourself, you'll understand real quick if somebody adds value to your business life or not.
Look, and a lot of this is, it can feel like you're kind of building the plane while you're flying it. And so, you know, the point is that as you're building these, you know, because there are some systems you can put in place around this, you know, once you've got some clarity on who you are, what you're on about, what message, what brand you're trying to get across, all those sorts of things, because everybody you bring in, and it's not just your employees, it's your vendors, it's your clients, they all enhance that brand and the message, and they become part of that ambassadorship as well of your brand. And so the point is that you're constantly keeping an eye on it. Like I've got my logo, I've got my website, I've got my brand, I'm good to go, right? No, this is something you just keep doing on and on and on. And so, you know, it's, you know, you'll build systems around it. You will build systems in terms of recruiting. You might even get yourself a good VA, right? And so, but you will build things around it. And that's the whole point, is it's not always meant to be just this wild, grand, sparkly adventure of goodness knows what's going to happen tomorrow, right? There is actually some pragmatism to this. And this is coming from a guy who's the least pragmatic guy on the planet, right? But I love pragmatism. I love working through things. And so, again, for me, it's also then, so who is adding the best value to my journey? A VA, because I desperately need one, or virtual assistant, if people don't understand what a VA is.
Yeah, I want to be sensitive to our time, but I want to circle back to something that we talked about a while ago, strengths and weaknesses. And if you don't watch out for that, then as an entrepreneur with a small business, you're going to create yourself a phenomenon called the sawtooth curve. And the sawtooth curve is, I'm out prospecting, I get business. Then I have to produce. While I'm producing, I'm not prospecting. And then you go through that cycle again. You've got to stop that sawtooth curve before it ever starts. And I think the best way to do that is what he said, systems, processes, those are the tools that we call leverage. So you're going to leverage your business. And you're going to leverage for your weaknesses or those things that you can't handle. I have seen CEOs step down to become the supervisor in the production department because that was their strength. They hired somebody else to be the CEO.
Well, yeah, real quick too, talking about going in for the sell and having that conversation, ask a question, ask people if they will help you. So if you have a weakness and you go like, Britton, I say, hey man, will you help me? And he's like, yeah, let's do the thing. And then you can kind of stand back and say, okay, are we all rowing the boat in the direction that as the leader wants to row the boat? And then you look over and like, hey, you're not rowing. Can you do a little more rowing? And if that guy says no, you're like, okay, well, you're off the team. Just kind of the way that I look at it.
And I think about it in three different facets as well in my head. It's like, okay, I think about, investors type of style. We have, we're talking to investors, and obviously I have to get a business plan that's 28 pages long, and then I'm trying to put them into circles. A different qualifying than friends versus, clients that we do an exploratory call, and we just chit chat and talk about, life, this, that. And then the biggest thing with it, I think, is like really going down, again, strengths and weaknesses. What can you bring? What can they bring to the table? But have that in a conversation. I mean, no matter what business we're in, we're the people business. We have to have people to function day in, day out. So I think that's the biggest thing that I'm trying to emulate from these guys as well is have your processes, have your systems like employees. We have something called Ghost University. We say, this is Ghost. Read all to it, and then we'll talk. And after that, then they know a little about us, and then we can sort of break down those walls and barriers outside of pay, what do I do, what's your message, what's your vision. I mean, process and procedures are everything to us, but also it's that relationship that builds and compounds on that.
One of the things that we put in place with a lot of my clients in terms of just hiring processes and stuff like that, and so a lot of my clients have quite a few employees, is we just develop a whole matrix around what we call attitude, aptitude, and skill. Right? So it goes in that order for a reason. And so the skill is like they're applying for the job because they've got skill in that general space. Sometimes you can get those foreign ones where, you've got a high-end engineering job and some graphic designer in India applies for the job. Well, they're probably going to cross them off pretty quickly. They happen in recruiting. but it's that attitude, aptitude, skill. All right, so I would spend more time at testing and assessing and getting what I can out of attitude and aptitude, and then hire them because we all know hire the attitude because they'll learn the skill. But there's more to it. Like attitude and aptitude, I think are two things that are very important. So and you just need to know what you want, and that's going to be different for each position. Right, so I've got clients who have got 15 different positions, and we have different attitude and aptitude levels for each one. The sort of things we expect: emotional intelligence, behaviors, strengths and weaknesses, maybe working genius, or whatever there is, whatever models you kind of like to tap into. But there's a lot out there that can really help you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah. I think we're close up on time, so
Yeah.
I just want to thank my co-panelists.
Yeah,
Thank you guys. Thank you, NH2A, for sure.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Justin,
So,
it's been fun.
guys, thank you so much for showing up. We're going to come out and we'll stand down here to answer any questions. If you'd like to reconnect with us, the easiest way is we've got a sign-in sheet. Give us your email and then we'll get you our contact information, or you can get us individually down here. And thank you again so much for your time. I'm going to close this in quick prayer here. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this time where we could come and just share and communicate and just learn from one another on what it takes to grow our businesses. Lord, we just ask that they be a blessing to our community, a blessing to our families, and just ask that you continue to watch us and lead us into the men and the women that you call us to be in the entrepreneurs. We just trust you and praise you in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you all.
Thank you all so much.
Appreciate it.